Okay, well, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel, and today's brochure review is for the Jaguar XJ12 Series One of 1972 onwards. In this video I'll actually be looking at two brochures. This is a much simpler job, and then we've got this one here which is slightly more comprehensive, so we'll have a quick look at this one first and then move on to the second example. The big difference visually when you look at an XJ12 compared to the XJ6 is this, the grille, whereas the XJ6 Series One had a Mazak grille with sort of cross pieces and vertical slats, which was a bit of a mishmash. The XJ12 had this lovely chrome slatted grille, and I always thought it looked so much nicer than the XJ6. So like I said, this is a fairly simple affair that just folds out, and on the upper half we've got a high up shot of the short wheelbase XJ12, which would be the one I'd go for now if I was going to buy another one, if I could find one, that is. It's just a magnificent smooth piece of kit. 5343cc single overhead cam V12, and the engine had actually made its debut in the E-Type Series 3 a little while before, and they sort of Jaguar tended to put their new engines into the sporting models to sort of refine them and just sort of iron out any bugs before they put them in their sort of mass-produced saloons, if you like. They did the same with the XK engine, and they did that with the V12 as well. There had been plans to build a quad cam V12 for their road cars, but the increased complexity just sort of ruled it out. And actually I think the single overhead cam, from what I remember, was a more usable, tractable version for a road car anyway. And I think the quad cam, they only made an engine that ended up in the XJ13 sports racing car, which never actually saw competition use. So back to the XJ12. Here we have a side-on view of a green short wheelbase again. This brochure probably predates the launch of the long wheelbase version, which they only made 754, I think, examples, if I remember correctly, of the long wheelbase, and only probably 2,000 or 3,000 of the short wheelbase. So no Series 1 XJ12 is common, and the long wheelbase ones were slightly a bit rarer than these, but these are the better looking car, I think. So the XJ12, powered by Jaguar's 5.3 litre V12 engine, not only extends the XJ range of models, but also provides the world with a 4-door 12-cylinder saloon of exceptional value, while embracing the advanced engineering, design and safety features of other XJ models. It includes many significant additions consistent with the installation of the V12 engine, which, by its very configuration, provides exceptionally good balance, smooth running, and a high power and torque output throughout its speed range, coupled with extreme flexibility. A small increase in engine weight over that of Jaguar's 6-cylinder power unit, because the V12 was all alloy, if I remember correctly, whereas the XK was an iron block, is countered by a slight increase in front spring rate and length and ventilated front discs, as introduced on the V12 E-Type, fitted at the front. The complete disc brake system is servo assisted, with separate hydraulic circuits to front and rear wheels, and with increased efficiency to match the increased performance. Improved ventilation, introduced on other models also, is achieved by the installation of fresh air ducts leading from the outer headlamp surrounds to the front footwells, and can be switched on or off, or to an intermediate position. This supplements the multi-directional fascia-mounted fresh air ducts. Rapid changes of air are effected by neat extraction vents at the rear. Because like they say, they changed the headlamp surrounds in here before they were solid, and then on this model about this time they introduced the tops of the headlamp surrounds had like a mesh vent in, and that provided extra ventilation into the cabin, because one of the XJ's Achilles heels was ventilation. They would often steam up and it could be quite difficult to get them clear again. The Series 1s had opening wind out front door quarter lights, which did help, but they were removed, they were deleted on the Series 2s and the Series 3s. Even though the Series 2s had the quarter light, they weren't opening, whereas on the Series 1 they wound out on sort of knurled circular knobs, if you like. So that was the sort of one of the downsides of running an XJ on a regular basis. Outside, the XJ12 gives a visual impression of smoothness. Inside, it provides the feel, not just by the comfort and luxury of its furnishings and fittings, but also by its engineering design features, which combine to keep the transference of road noise and vibration to the very minimum. With its roomy interior, wide track and broad tyres, the XJ12 looks exactly as spacious and as stable as it really is. And to be honest, it could show a clean pair of heels to pretty much anything that Mercedes or BMW were producing at the time. It really was a great car. We've got an under bonnet shot here showing the massive pipe work, the balance pipes that went between the four Stromberg carburetors. They had been removed on my car, so I had to figure out all that plumbing and put them all back together again. And one oddity that was introduced on the V12 over the 6-cylinder was a small electric fan on the battery box, just to sort of cool the battery. I'm not sure if the Series 2s and 3s ever had that, but the Series 1 certainly did. And they also had whereas the 6-cylinder had the AED, automatic choke, on the V12s you actually had a manual choke beneath the right hand side of the steering column, if I remember correctly, near the door, and you actually had to manually do the choke yourself, which always seemed slightly strange, but never mind. I'll have to forgive it these little foibles. And on the back we've got a stamp for Lambs of Loughton Limited, High Road Loughton in Essex. It just lists out some of the features, such as anti-dive suspension, servo assisted disc brakes, ventilated front discs for improved brake cooling, and so it goes on. And then we've got the specification, the 60-degree V12, single overhead cams per bank, 4 carburetors, 5343cc, and 309 brake horsepower gross at 6,250 revs per minute. I think in reality the brake horsepower was something nearer 260, 270, something like that, about 272 if memory serves. We've got 332 pound-foot of torque at 4,000 RPM. It certainly was a revvy engine, I remember that well. And 3-speed gearbox. It was a Borg-Warner Model 12, if I remember correctly. And we've got the rest of the specifications there, which I'll have a closer look at shortly. So that was the single sheet folded brochure for the XJ12, and then we've got the more comprehensive edition here. And this, I mean, presumably a lot of the photographs appear to be on this particular beach. I'm not quite sure where it is. Something tells me it might be in Wales, but I'm sure someone will tell me if they know. We've got 2 XJ12s here, a brown one, CVC 454L, which is a Coventry registration, and then we've got CWK 212K, a bright red, which just looks superb, I think. Let's have a look and see what delights are to be found within. It's quite an arty publication with lots of blank space, all very slick and sophisticated, which is what Jaguar were aiming for. And again, we've got a close-in of the grille. Looks remarkably similar to this picture on here. In fact, I've still got one of these grilles. I bought a new old stock one and I never fitted it. A phrase long associated with Jaguar, a special kind of motoring which no other car in the world can offer, becomes particularly significant for the XJ12, which, by its addition to the Jaguar range, extends the world's range of high-performance luxury cars to include a 12-cylinder 4-door saloon. It embraces the numerous advanced engineering, design and safety features of other XJ models, and incorporates many important additions consistent with the installation of Jaguar's 5.3 litre V12 engine. Like I say, ventilation wasn't a great on the early XJs, and the XJ12, probably its biggest problem was its thirst. It was quite a thirsty old girl, and you were lucky in town driving to get much more than sort of 10-12 miles per gallon, so it was a little on the thirsty side, and given that it came out around about the time of the oil crisis, it didn't really help sales very much. Externally, the XJ12 is identifiable by its radiator grille, vertically slatted and surmounted by a V12 symbol, and by its XJ12 motif at the rear. It retains the XJ all-steel body of monocoque construction, wide, spacious and with good all-round visibility. With these characteristics and its broad track and wide tyres, the XJ12 is exactly as spacious and as stable as it looks. And from the side, the only real giveaway that this was a 12-cylinder Series 1 as opposed to a 6 with these wheels, whereas these painted ventilated wheels would be standard on the Series 2 that came later. The V12 version of the XJ Series One came with these, whereas the XJ6 had a plainer wheel altogether. These were chromed on the E-Type V12, if I recall correctly, but they were painted on the XJ12 versions. Go over the page. We've got that brown example again, CVC, motoring along, headlamps ablaze. Outstanding road behaviour is a feature of all cars in the Jaguar range, not least the XJ12, wherein a small increase in engine weight is countered by a slight increase in front spring rate and length and ventilated front brake discs, just as it said in the other brochure. Is there anything else new here? Probably not, so we'll carry on. Side-on view of the red example, looking particularly nice. And again, very similar words to the previous one. Outside the XJ12 gives a visual impression of its smoothness. The ride and handling qualities of the XJ12 enable driver and passengers alike to experience motoring of an enjoyable kind, whether on long distance journeys or crawling along in city traffic. Smoothness and quietness are common in both situations. At all times the response to controls is reassuringly positive. In the subtle balance of its virtues, the XJ12 makes the driver feel immediately at one with the car. Now, no words, but just to look at the interior. So we've got the interior of the V12 with its auto gearbox. The XJ12, if I remember correctly, was only ever available with the auto gearbox. A number of the E-Type V12s, you could get the manual, but the V12 Saloon, they all came with the Borg-Warner gearbox. So there's no manual option, unfortunately. A few people retrofitted the pedal box and the manual gearbox to sort of make it a little bit more sprightly, but to be honest, it didn't really need it. The gearbox wasn't great, the auto box, but it was good enough. Let's have a looky over here. We've got a silver example, and again Coventry registered CVC 453L. That's one of the factory cars, looking rather swish, and a larger overhead view of the mighty engine itself. That's the throttle pedestal, so the accelerator pedal links to this, and then this operates both banks of carburetors. I think the plan from the beginning had been to put fuel injection on it, but they couldn't get it ready in time, so they went with the 4 Strombergs, which was always a bit of a compromise, I think, but it did the job. And even the first Series 2s, if I remember correctly, were still on carburetors, and then after a while the Series 2 did go fuel injection. But all the Series 1 XJ12s were carburetted, as far as I'm aware. What we got? The Jaguar V12 engine not only enhances the performance and quietness of the car, but also, through the use of the very latest machine tools, achieves a volume of production which enables Jaguar to offer it in cars at a very competitive price. We've got various information about the V12 engine, blah blah blah. It's all jolly good. And if you can see that on the screen, you can read that if you so wish. Then we've got a photograph of the luggage area. Now, I'm assuming they chose fairly small bags for this photograph, because even though the boot area was fairly long and it went under the rear shelf, it wasn't very deep at all. To accommodate the drooping tail, which was all very elegant and looked fantastic, it didn't give a huge amount of boot space in the Jaguar, so that was always a slight downside. So it even says here, the capacious luggage compartment has a counterbalance lid for ease of operation. It is fully trimmed to protect luggage and has an automatic interior light which operates in circuit with the side lamps. Even they say themselves that there are options if you couldn't fit everything in the boot. For items other than the main luggage, for maps, books, personal effects and the many odds and ends one has to find room for, particularly on long journeys and holidays, the car's interior has many useful spaces: door pockets, parcel shelves, a lockable glove box, and a centre console compartment which serves as an armrest when closed. Over here we've got a few more arty photographs of the XJ12 in various settings. A nice courtyard and out on the beach again. I hope they hosed down all the salt from underneath it after that, because it wouldn't have lasted very long at all. The illustrations on the opposite page show, top right, one of the twin reversing lights, which give a broad and bright spread of light. The early XJs had the reflectors built in to there, whereas later they moved the reflector to there. Early doors, they were in there. The wide tread tyre developed especially for Jaguar. Yeah. Air intakes incorporated in the outer headlamp rims, which is under there. Well, it was not actually that one, it was that one there, wasn't it? Yes, there's a grille under there. From the very front to the very rear extremities, the XJ12 includes a multitude of features, not all of which can be pictured in the brochure, but the most significant of which are listed over leaf. Then we've got, again, the list of engineering and safety features, which I'll zoom in on, and I'll show that a bit better in the close-up. And then in here we've got like a little folder on a pull-out specification sheet, and this has all the dimensions on it for the XJ12, the short wheelbase version, which again, it was the only one that was available at the time, and the specification sheet over leaf, which I'll have a closer look at shortly. So let's just open that up and pop that back in if we can. Go to the back, and we've got another lovely photograph of two V12s on the beach. And looking down at the bottom here, we've got a date of 8/72, so August 1972 was this date. Jaguar, British Leyland, UK Limited, Coventry, England. And like I say, it didn't stay in production for very long, because the Series One in the 6 and 12 cylinder form only continued until 1973 anyway. So the Series One V12 was only in production for about a year or so, and the long wheelbase was even less than that. Then in 73, the Series 2 came along with its raised front bumper, and it lost something of its magnificent styling. I just think they lost it a bit when they went to the higher bumper and the shallower grille. I just don't think it was ever really the same car. So yep, this would be the one for me if I was going to buy another XJ. So I hope that was of interest, looking at these two brochures for the XJ12 at its launch in 72. If you have memories of running one of these, as I do, it'd be great to read them in the comments. If you could pop a few words down perhaps. Keep an eye on the channel, because there'll be more brochure reviews coming up very soon, and if old Jaguars are your thing and there's any particular model that you'd like to see brochures for featured in this particular section of the website and the Old Classic Car channel, again, please pop me a note in the comments and I'll see what I can do. So thanks for watching.